Please join me in prayer. To gather in your name, O Most Holy One, is a joy and a privilege. As we reflect on your word, we have opportunities to be inspired, grow in our faith, turn around and embrace your intention and redirection. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our salvation. Amen. It wasn't too long ago that we were singing Christmas carols. And now we are talking about Jesus' suffering and death, which ultimately leads to his resurrection. In the season of Lent, we are encouraged to come up, take up, raise up, light up, lift up, sit up, and get up in our call, in our faith, in our identity, re-examining who and whose we are. We are encouraged to look up to Jesus, who modeled for us in his suffering and showed us how to remain faithful to the end. We are invited to look up to Jesus so that as individuals and as a church, we will embrace endurance in times of trial and will remain faithful despite suffering, rejection, opposition, and persecution. I know suffering, rejection, and persecution are very loaded terms. And sometimes we cannot relate to it or to these loaded terms anymore. Well, we have a different context. We have the tendency to just, shy away from talking about those heavy subjects. We would rather focus on things that can make us feel good and be comfortable. But as Christians, as a people always in the quest for growth and something new, we are always confronted with biblical passages and stories that are simply difficult to digest, and yet struggle to understand so that our perspective about life and church and ministry will expand. It was in the context, in this context that the Gospel of Mark was written. Mark was trying to portray the personality of Jesus as the model of endurance, of persistence, and faithfulness. And those who answer his invitation to follow him will be empowered to endure trials and tribulations and will remain faithful. One of those things that I do in my sermon preparation is to read the different versions of the same text. In today's passage, it gave me some level of curiosity how verse 34 is translated when Jesus said, "If anyone to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." And I discovered this. New King James Version says, "Whoever desires to come after me, let him deny and take up his cross and follow me." The New Living Translation has this: "If any one of you wants to be my follower, you must give up. You must give up your own way." That kind of shifted a little bit from self-denial to giving up your own way, because we all have our ways of doing things. Right? And that may not be Jesus' way of doing things. I love that. Take up your cross and follow me. And the Message translation has this version not only for verse 34, But 34 to 37, because I don't want to cut it. Anyone who intends to come with me has to let me lead. You are not in the driver's seat. Don't run from suffering. Embrace it. Follow me, and I'll show you how. Self-help is no help at all. Self-sacrifice is the way, my way, to saving yourself, your true self. What good would it do to get everything you want and lose you? The real you. What could you ever trade your soul for? Wow, this amazes me. How, the translation kind of, moved from the monotone kind of translation into this something that is expanded. It is interesting to say the least how biblical translators come up a version of the same text that can enlighten us even more. And that, again, amazes me. The most important thing is that the text will surely speak to us in our personal journey and context of ministry. Again, that's the relevance that we've been talking about all this time. And I love to just, learn more of how different translations can enlighten us. And even in the Bible study setting, don't just stick to one version of the Bible. Bring every translation there is. That helps us understand the text. Of course, honoring the original context. In the season of Lent, as we are reminded of Jesus' suffering, rejection, and death, we are invited to take up the cross of persistence and faithfulness. We're invited to engage in the pursuit of offering our lives in the service of those who Jesus cares the most. We're invited by Jesus to engage in, be involved, and participate in the building up of Christ's body, the church, the community, us, and embrace sacrifice as an essential part of following Jesus. Have you ever thought of that? What is that sacrifice thing? Can we make sense of that terminology? What is really sacrifice? There's a sack right there, and there's a vice. But we're trying to understand, what are all these loaded terminologies really? How can we translate those in concrete terms? Well, Jesus has undergone it himself. And sometimes we cannot relate into that. But we're trying our best to. We are called to labor in Jesus' name with the awareness that being a Christian is not a walk in the park. We are called to participate in the journey with Jesus, who sticks to his call to the end. Faithful despite the risks involved, despite sacrifices, and the ultimate giving of his life, we are challenged to pursue the same path. The path of self-denial, the path of lesser attention to self, the path to faithfulness modeled by Jesus. I remember this prayer of a pastor before she preaches. And she would say, "Less of me, Lord, less of me. Less of me, Lord, less of me and more of you. I like that. Less attention to ourselves is better because we can pay attention to God even more. Different people, different perspectives on what Jesus meant when he said, "Take up your cross." And I know that in this community, we varied our understanding of the cross. Undeniably, throughout history, we can actually remember how the cross was used to oppress people. You know, people came to the Philippines with the cross and the sword. That's not, just an opinion. It is a fact. Well, during the Crusaders' time, I would not even talk about it. But it's okay to have different versions and understanding of what the cross is. Simple as it is, right? I wear one. It's a lot better this time because I don't have to carry it. I just to, hang it. I still carry it, yes. That's true, Liz. Because the burden now is in my heart. It's not the literal weight that we had to carry. And I love it. So, one person said, taking up our cross to follow Christ means simply commitment to the point of giving up our hopes, dreams, possessions, even our very life, if need be. This is the attitude, the only acceptable attitude of a true disciple. Jesus' followers regard the reward as worth the price. Unquote. So this person is saying, regardless of what we go through, it doesn't matter. There is reward. Looking forward to that joy beyond what is challenging, beyond what is painful, beyond suffering. Another person said this, taking up our cross means sacrifice, laying everything on the altar. It's not half-hearted commitment. It is full surrender to God's terms of discipleship. It's a choice to live out the truth that we are crucified with Christ, as Paul terms it, even if it means shame, rejection, or persecution. Oh, that's hard. Why can't Christianity be just, comfortable and all this and this and that? Well, we follow the wrong guy. If we want to be comfortable, we are not following Jesus. Really. Now, how about you? What is your understanding of taking up Jesus' cross for yourself? We also need to answer these questions. Are we willing to embrace for ourselves Jesus' unwavering faithfulness? Are we willing to give up our life's priorities for the sake of sharing the good news? Are we willing to face opposition, rejection, if not persecution, in the name of Christ who gave his all? We have a familiar hymn that goes, Jesus walked this lonesome valley. He had to walk it by himself. Oh, nobody else could walk it for him. He had to walk it by himself. The second stanza says, we must walk this lonesome valley. We have to walk it by ourselves. Oh, nobody else can walk it for us. We have to walk it by ourselves. And then the third stanza, you must go and stand your trial. You have to stand it by yourself. Oh, nobody else can stand it for you. You have to stand it by yourself. Yes, in our commitment to serve God, there are times that we are walking like in that lonesome valley. And there is a need for that. In our commitment, there are times, there are lonesome valleys that we need to tread. There are times when we are required to stand and endure trials and testing. Sometimes it feels like following Christ or serving in church is like a lonesome and gloomy endeavor. But we rejoice in the truth that in all our attempts to walk where Jesus walked, in all our quests to be faithful to the end, God walks with us and we have each other. In the end, we will sing this song. We must walk this lonesome valley. We have to walk as Jesus did. Oh, everybody else will walk beside us. We walk with God, not just ourselves. Amen.